Hi everyone, good evening. Welcome to Boss vs Coach. Tonight, I and Olivia are back with another hard-hitting episode, and which is very relevant, which is very pertinent, which is very important, and which is very relatable. Tonight, we are gonna unlock the paradox of performance appraisal. In corporate life, performance appraisals are less about the work you do and more about the work you do with the person who is holding the pen. Ah, yes, performance appraisal season is on. This is that sacred time when worksheet becomes the most lethal weapon, when feedback becomes forewarnings, and when suddenly everybody started discovering the art of copying your bosses in the emails to demonstrate your achievements, to demonstrate the impact, to demonstrate your seriousness, and for some, to demonstrate the long working hours you are putting in on the job. Appraisals were meant to celebrate effort, recognize potential, and reward impact. But somewhere between the Excel sheets and the calibration meetings, it has lost its essence and have become less about growth and more about games. Let's be honest. In most of the cases, appraisal is not being judged based on your performance, but it's all about your tone, your presence, your relationships, and at times about your silence. You might be an outstanding performer. You might be have saved many projects from falling into the well. You might have been mentoring your team. You be someone who is seen as a role model, as a coach. But one miss, one escalation, one shortcoming, and you are off the radar. Your performance becomes not consistent enough. So, tonight we will talk about the paradox of a performance appraisal as to how something which was meant to inspire became something which people fear. And how can we bring back heart back into this process which has lost its humanity? Olivia, your initial thoughts on the paradox of performance appraisal.
Well, it's a really big topic. So, I mean, one of the things I really don't like is an annual review of performance anyway, because there's nothing worse than, we're having the performance conversation today and you start telling me about something I didn't do right 8 months ago. That's completely unhelpful. And so the feedback and the conversations should be being had on a monthly basis, maybe rolled up to a quarterly basis. And there shouldn't be any surprises when it comes to performance and how people see each other developing. What kind of really worries me about what you were just saying was that actually the performance isn't what people are looking at so much as, do we give this person an incremental rise? Do we give this person a bonus? Do we keep them on the team? So it's become a very blunt instrument. So I'm sure that people going into appraisal season waiting to have that conversation must be really anxious because, like you say, they're copying their boss in, they're trying to be visible, they're trying to stand on each other's shoulders to be seen. And you're right, that totally misses the point. We as coaching leaders should be wanting to see how our people will develop. What's their 1, 2, 3, 5 year goals and ambitions? How do we, as their leaders, support them in their growth? So actually doing the classic mode of feedback that we as coaches love, which is to really focus on what did the person do really well? And not just in the last month when I've suddenly started thinking about them, but over the last year. What are the things that I can see you have done to contribute well to the organization, to the projects, to the team? And then what are the things that you could do even better going forward so that you have the opportunities that you are looking for? Maybe there's particular skills that you want to grow. Maybe there's ones that as your leader, I feel that I need from you. So it should be a really great discussion about what's gone on and what will happen, instead of, well, actually, Mohit's copied me on 50 emails this week. He's obviously a busy boy. I'll give him a tick. So it is such a shame that it's become something which is dreaded and is actually dysfunctional.
Agree. So, Olivia, is it true to say that performance appraisal have reduced to become a process of rewarding less of performance, but where you demonstrate the abuse of your power or the pen that you hold in hand, which makes you a destiny maker for many others outside that room?
I don't think this is new, Mohit. I think this is what the bosses around the world have been doing forever. Call you into the office once a year, tell you you're not good enough and you can't have more money. The coaches are the ones who are sitting there seeing it as an opportunity for growth, for support, and, well, for coaching. So I don't think it's new. I guess the question is, as a leader, what are you doing? Because, that these are interesting times in terms of employment. People have different choices. People are leaving a lot of professions. People are going into the more of the digital space. So if you're in the knowledge industry, you might already be thinking, well, AI might take our jobs. But what about the people that you do need? You need to incentivize and to support the people who can do the jobs alongside AI. And if you're going to throw away that talent, then it's going to cost you a lot in the long run.
And Olivia, how much of this is relevant? Because I often hear from my colleagues, and I have also myself experienced that at times the ratings are compromised, the performance appraisal, or I should say the so-called ratings, are reduced, are somewhere sacrificed in the name of maintaining a bell curve. How much of it is relevant? Now, how can you stick to your bell curve and restrict someone's growth or undermine someone's performance and potential?
Concept of a bell curve, I think, is really interesting because, of course, any natural distribution will come out in that shape. So it's a useful tool to look across a whole population. And if you see that there are big outliers, you can ask questions. But I remember 10, 12 years ago, in my team of 26 people, I was talking to the people business partner, and I was saying, well, I want all of my people to be in the top category. And they said, well, they can't be because you've got to have a bell curve. I'm like, for 26 people, you're saying that I've got to have people who aren't doing well, and only a couple of people can be doing really well. That doesn't make sense. The bell curve is in relation to the whole organization. And if I have a super high performing team, then they should all be recognized as super high performing. So I think people misunderstand what the bell curve is for. And famously, Jack Walsh used to say, well, the top 10% are promoted and given more work, and the bottom 10% are got rid of every year. And you end up with lots and lots of people just hiding in the middle. What you want to do is see every person for who they are, what they bring, what their potential is, and see how they can develop that potential over the coming years.
Many youngsters in my network, they come to me and they ask me a very difficult question. I have not been able to give them an answer which at least satisfies me. So I would like to throw that to you on this podcast. How come one or two mistakes or one or two shortcomings takes away your year's performance and achievements? And why can't your success on few can take away the bias of your manager?
It comes down to what is the meeting for? What is that event for? And if it is looking for reasons to hold people back or to spend less money or to not give bonuses, then of course, your bias is looking for the areas where someone isn't doing everything that they could. Of course, if the purpose of the meeting is to help someone grow and develop, then it's a very different conversation entirely, isn't it? And I think one of the things, I hear a lot of people talking about grading and appraisals, and there's this whole thing about whether you're above, below, or meeting expectations. And one of the things I question is how understood are those expectations, and are they understood throughout the year? Do they change? They must change. The world is a fast moving place. So do the expectations of someone change over the year? Sure. But you get to the end of a year and someone goes, oh, I thought you'd be doing this, that, and the other, and actually you were only doing that. So you're below my expectations. It's like, well, again, it's unfair. It's looking for the opportunity to push someone down rather than to build them up.
So, Olivia, one thought in my mind, and you can take it as a question, that is the real appraisal written on forms, or is it something which is whispered in meetings and corridors?
Real appraisal is, like I said before, the month-on-month conversation between a leader and their people on how things are going, how expectations are being met or missed, what are the small changes and tucks and turns that need to be done to keep someone really on track. When it comes to the end of year appraisal, there should be no surprises. All of the conversations should have been had. But again, it depends. If the conversation's about that individual's performance, then that is true. If the conversation is about how we're going to split the salary and bonus pot, then I reckon that, yeah, it's in the corridors. There's leaders looking at each other going, oh, how have you managed to spend the money? Have you managed to keep it down? And let's face it, there's only so much money to go around. So I could brutally offer that some leaders are probably looking at the people around them thinking, well, if they get a bit less bonus, I get a bit more of the pot.
And how fair is it to leave the appraisals of many to the perception of few? We talk about performance appraisals, confirms talks about transparency, they talk about all these digitized forms, AI is coming to play a role. But towards the end of every decent tech oriented digital first process, there is a person sitting with a pen who puts the final word. How fair it is.
Well, someone's got to make the decision. That's what leadership is all about, taking that responsibility. But again, I think it's very much what is the question that they're answering? If they are looking across, I don't know, an organization of 1,000 people of whom they know 50 really well, if they're taking the ultimate decision on the other 950, then that's an interesting one, isn't it? Having really good conversations around moderating and checking for consistency is really important. And each leader needs to be advocating for the people who they know. If it does end up with one person and a pen, then it doesn't feel like it's fair at all. But someone does ultimately make the decision, of course.
So is it fair to say that the process of performance appraisal be changed and we should start calling it as people's appreciation?
I think it's not just appreciation, because I think it is about performance. It's about growth. It's about seeing potential and getting behind that. And I'm not sure if changing the name of things matters too much. I think the point is, what are you doing in the meeting? What's its purpose? And if everybody knows it's not a performance appraisal, it's a conversation to tell you what your compensation is, call it a compensation meeting and don't call it an appraisal at all. Keep the word performance out of it. So I think it's about, again, expectation and clarity. So much of leadership is.
That brings us to the closure of this exciting, interesting podcast. I'm sure the viewers will be fascinated to know where and how they can overcome the anxiety of performance appraisal. There's a silent message for the leaders to own the appraisal they are doing, to remove the bias from their mind while appraising the career, the future of someone else, and to demonstrate brave leadership, which is towards being a coach, less being a boss. For those who are gonna get appraised very soon, good luck, guys. And remember, performance appraisal is assessment or perception of your work for that year, but it's not an assessment of your worth. Recognize your worth, shine bright, stay high, and luck will favor you someday. On that note, good night, goodbye, take care, and keep watching Boss vs. Coach. The book is out on Amazon. Go buy it, read it. Let me and Olivia know how did you find it. The next one is in pipeline very soon. With all your wishes, it should come out in your hands, and I'm sure that will add to your wisdom. On that note, bye bye, take care. Thank you, Olivia. Thanks,
Yeah.
Anthony. Thank you, bye.